Worlds apart, their banner lies, adorned with the will of hapless souls. They thrive on chaos, with wind through their reeds, these warriors and sages of might untold. Yet their act of valor, in the crudest form, is a mere ripple in the formless storm. So pray, O unholy soul, may their paths never unite, for what may come out in the end can drown your sight. Out of chaos comes order, and then comes might. Their strength and spirit shall infuse you with light.
Hello everyone, I'm the Holy Hermit, and we're doing something different today. There are times when farming on your own can just get tedious, and you wish to slay a monster with a fellow sanctuary dweller. A new player joins in then, all well and good, but the issue then arises in the form of efficiency. You can do well on your own, and so can your fellow friend, but when you two work together, your skills are not synced up well, so one ability might hinder another one. So the aim of this video is to show you an alternative way where you can have two good characters in the game that are good on their own but excellent when they work together. To be more precise, the very first set of characters we're looking at is a combination of Monk and a Barbarian. Two melee characters that follow two different principles, one relying on strength, armor, the other one relying on agility. So without further ado, we delve off into our build. Our mighty hero from the north, whirlwinding his way across enemies, can sometimes face challenges in form of monsters that hinder his ability to move around. Our elusive friend from the east can also use a bit of help in form of crowd control. The normal way one would go about it on a solo mode would be to balance the characters in such a way that they have a damage dealing skill on their own and rest everything else goes for defense. But on comes co-op play, where you can rely on your dear friend to give you some defense. You both can supplement each other's abilities. You can give strength to each other's weaknesses and hone each other's damage. This is the primary idea behind this build. So the first character we look into is our Monk. When it comes to extending your will onto characters, Monk's skills are all focused on that. The aim here is to slow enemies down at all times. Their movement speed is slowed, their attack speed is slowed, and this leads to ample opportunity for both characters to strike hard. The first skill does this very same thing in form of crippling wave tsunami. You slow down enemies around you. This Hearten from Mantra of Conviction also does the same effect. When monsters are far away, you can still hit them from a distance by using Hand of Ytar, leading to a similar effect again. So you do see all these things stacking up right now. Monk being able to slow things around him at all times. But when there's movement impairing effects on the ground in form of molten or frozen, Monk can pull enemies closer towards him using Cyclone Strike Implosion. One defensive stat for both characters is also Sanctified Ground. When the characters are overwhelmed by monsters, they can push them away. Sanctified Ground would create a breathing room for them, but that's only half the effect of Sanctified Ground, as when the rune expires, the ground is still sanctified, slowing monsters down for another 6 seconds. To have enough spirit for all these skills, one also requires Exalted Soul and Chant of Resonance as a passive. You need to have a high spirit pool and some spirit regeneration for this to work well. And the final passive to round this build up is Near Death Experience. When there is a chance for Monk to die, he can turn the tables around and can survive an oncoming onslaught twice in under 60 seconds. This build is extremely useful for players who have high-end gear, but what if you're lacking this and you're working your way up to the top? No issue then, you can swap out a few skills, as I'm going to give you a few of my humble suggestions that can work very well for you. Sanctified Ground can be replaced with Serenity and a rune of your choice if defensive stats are an issue. Same thing goes for Near Death Experience. If you have low all resistances, you can swap out Near Death Experience for one with everything. Now we look at Barbarian, a character that plays very differently from Monk. The basic idea here again would be to supplement the idea for a Monk where you're still slowing enemies down, but you also need Fury to sustain that Wrath of Berserker. So the skills we're going to be looking at are a mix of slowing enemies down and dealing tons of damage. So the primary mode of attack then is not to use the normal skill. Instead, we're going to be using Rend as our primary attack. Mutilate allows us to slow enemies down. Hurricane being our secondary attack that enables us to cut through hordes of enemies mercilessly. Threatening Shout with Intimidate has a similar effect to Rend, where you can slow the movement speed of enemies. Run works very well in tandem with Hurricane and Thrive on Chaos, where all these skills combined can help you to generate fury and deal damage. A little cherry on the cake then is to use Battle Cry with Into the Fray. Passives are where you can experiment the most with Barbarian. The standard setup you can go for is a combination of Ruthless with Weapon Master and Animosity. If you think you're dealing enough damage and you have a space where you can let go of Ruthless, a good idea here would be to have Inspiring Presence. So these are the two builds that work very well in tandem. The goal you're going after here is to slow enemies down at all times. But as always, this is just scratching the surface really. The whole idea here is to understand how this build works. The title of the video does suggest that this is an XP farming build. Barbarian can do this on his own, so can a Monk on Monster Power 10. But when you bring them together, it becomes a lot easier for both players just because the way the build works, everything around you is slowed down at all times. Monk is mainly responsible for this part, but a Barbarian also contributes a lot. Skills like Dishearten, Tsunami, Hand of Yitar, and even Sanctified Ground slows monsters down. Barbarian does the same thing in form of Mutilate and Intimidate. When tackling higher monster powers, you want to go for high mob density areas. That's another big aspect of this build. The more people are around you, the more effective this build would be. So places like Festering Woods are a great place to try this build. As I said earlier, everything is slow, they're all moving at very slow pace. They're going to even attack you at a slower rate, so you can land more hits on them. Both of the characters combined will deal tons of damage, whereas monsters in return would not be able to fight back just because of the defensive part of the build. Damage again from Monk's side is coming from Soaring Skull. You dash towards the enemies with your Soaring Skull and you slow monsters down in the process. Once you reach to a point there, you can either pull enemies closer towards you or you can push them away. A Barbarian would like this effect very much because when an implosion pulls all the monsters together, Run combined with Hurricane can work wonders for him. If monsters are far away and shooting Barbarian and Monk from a distance, Hand of Yitar can solve the problem as well. And one thing that's always working at all time is Dishearten, which is slowing enemies down. When a big group is pulled towards the character, Tsunami is slowing them down at all times every time Monk's attacking with a primary attack. Barbarians love to use Rend, and Mutilate does the same effect, so no matter who and what it is near these two characters, everything for a fact is slowed down. A little secret we found to this build is, if a Barbarian can find a Stone of Jordan with cold damage, it has a very special ability that no other ring has. That ring also slows monsters around you. So you do see the point now. Monster Power 10 does indeed feel like Monster Power 6 when both of the characters are working together. But sticking together is the main aspect of this build. It's easy for Barbarian right now because he can run and Monk's not using his Tempest Rush, but it's a way around it in form of Dashing Strike. If a Barbarian runs away forward, a Monk can move equally fast at his blinding speed by using Dashing Strike. The first job then would be to always cast Implosion and pull monsters towards him. Barbarian and Monk are both melee characters, so the best thing is they would all be together when they're fighting the same kind of group. The whole mob density is pulled towards a very small point, and these two characters are dealing damage constantly. This is the very fact that makes this build very unique and powerful on higher monster powers. The idea here is cooperation, like the way game was intended to be. You're playing not just for your own, but for your friend as well. The real meaning of co-op is explained in this video, and this build does prove this point to a great effect. I would like to thank my friend Bob again for helping me out with this build. This build was his idea and it works very well, so here we are showing this build to you. In the end, when stakes are high, and all you need is strength to push through, a helping hand from a friend can go a long way. Success is not just measured by your own strides, but by the valor and might of many. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Other than that, I hope you all have a great day ahead. Thanks ever so much for listening. I'm out now. Bye.